Namaste, and welcome to Acharya Shunya's podcast, Shadow to Self, a show created to inspire you to step out of fear and darkness into a place of freedom and empowerment. In each episode, she'll explore humanity's deepest questions about your relationship with yourself and others, illuminated by the ancient and non-dual wisdom of the Vedas, Upanishads, and Bhagavad Gita. Keep listening.
Phil, we had such incredible time that we spent together when I was visiting the East Coast, and we actually sat down and put up a camera and we thought, wow, we're gonna finally meet one-on-one and record this really special podcast episode for the season 2 of Shadow to Self. And then an interesting thing happened when I went back and reviewed the recording. It was definitely not of the caliber that we wanted to present. And there was that moment when the shadow could just come to me and say, oh no, and become totally disappointed about it. But instead, I just wrote to you, you made the time, and here we are, actually enjoying continued time together as friends and colleagues and appreciators of each other's body of work. So welcome again. And what do you think
Happy
about
to
this?
talk to you anytime.
Oh my goodness.
This is not duplicating the previous one. This is a continuation.
Absolutely, because neither of us work with a list of questions. We just show up. And we show up with the shadow and with the self, and we see where that leads us. So thank you so much again, Phil.
My pleasure.
So we're talking at a juncture in 2025 where there's a lot of tumult in the world. And the human being, Phil, this is what I feel working with my students across various time zones, cultures, countries, and I'm sure you've experienced that, is not any happier despite our technological advancement, despite so much that's going for us, definitely. And we've lost something, but we've gained a lot too. And there is some kind of fatalism or determinism that has crept into the spiritual circles also. And, it's the age-old discussion of, are we doomed here on earth? Have we been banished from some other better place?
From paradise,
From
yes.
paradise. What's going on? And I know that this is also a time when you're about to release, I believe, your latest book on karma, and it's called Karma Relief. So that's
Karmic Relief.
Karmic Relief, which is really nice because that word relief spells some relief. But while we'll talk about the book, definitely, but I did want to bring you on with all your years and years of being in this spiritual cauldron, if I'm pronouncing that word right.
Yes, you did.
And what do you think is happening here? And then I'll share with you what I think is happening. Why are we so miserable?
I don't know that I could have a God's eye view of what's going on in the culture and say it's happening for these reasons and it's going in this direction. Honestly, I've been, on the, as you put it, in the spiritual cauldron for more than 50 years in America as a practitioner, as a seeker, as a teacher, as an author. And in that time, we've had many periods where people have said, oh, this is the dawn of the new age, and this turmoil is happening, and these events in the world, whether it was the change of the millennium, or it was 9/11, or it was COVID, or, some astrological configuration, at some points or another. People were always pronouncing that this cosmic trend is occurring, and we will come out of it into the light of and all that. And I've become very cynical about such things because doesn't always turn out that way according to people's predictions. Whether or not there's something going on over the long term, some trends in the yugas and all that, I don't know. All I know is my take is that whatever's going on, it's up to us if something good will come out of it. It's not automatic. It's not built in. It's up to us. And Martin Luther King famously said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And smart people have said, yeah, we have to help it bend. There's progress, there's trends of evolution. And you could see that in the spiritual communities. More people are conscious of spirituality now. More people are dedicated to spiritual progress than in the past.
If one is, sorry to interrupt, go ahead.
But at the same time, as Buddha told us in the First Noble Truth, there's always going to be some unhappiness and discontent or suffering. And whether there's more of it at the moment than in previous periods, I'd say yes, there is, because of the social and political turmoil. But one could argue that the social and political turmoil is a consequence of human unhappiness, not just the cause of it.
So true, and so wisely observed by the Buddha. And it might be so, I'm wondering, that is why the rishis and the rishikas, the seers of the Upanishads, didn't have much to comment upon the political situation of India back then. Kings will come and kings will go, civilizations will come and civilizations will go. But the invitation in front of us is to go within.
Yeah.
And to find that steadiness, that truth, that light, which never dims.
And that's true,
And that's
regardless
true.
of what's going on.
Regardless. And perhaps this conversation is also going to offer a perspective to our listeners that we don't always have to have an opinion or a comment or some form of activism for what's going on, the tumult. And the earth goes through its own yugas or cycles or whatever be the term. But it's never not a time to look at who you are and your relationship with this universe. And that's the iconoclastic journey, in my opinion, from being in the shadow, where we start fighting all these phantoms, to being the self and being okay despite everything.
And that can be the beginning of somebody engaging with whatever is going on in the world. I don't think it's for people like you and me to tell other people whether they should be activists, whether they should be engaged in trying to change social conditions or not. That's an individual thing. People are called in any given situation to either act or just help their neighbor or do something, or to just take care of themselves. And any of those is appropriate if it's carefully considered, and we all use our discernment about what we are or are not called upon to do at any particular moment. I mean, that's also in the Vedic literature. I mean, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita all the time
The
as
concept
a
of Swadharma.
touchstone.
Yeah. The Swadharma concept.
Yes, right, Swadharma. But also what you as you put it, to go within and tap into the treasures within us that the rishis have pointed us to, and find the peace and equanimity and ananda. That's our true nature. But then we're human and we come out and we have to engage with our families and our neighbors and everything else. But having that strong foundation, whatever we choose to do, whatever is our dharma to carry out at any particular moment, having the foundation, that inner strength and resilience and happiness and contentment, that's a foundation for action. I mean, as that advice is given to Arjuna, who's about to go to fight a war in the Gita. So our war may be, just taking care of our kids and our neighbors, or it may be to take on political protests or whatever. But having the foundation is the first step.
To burn through the false narratives we live inside and to be true to our Swadharma. What is the deeper soul calling?
Yes.
Which can be from leading a simple, pleasureful life, being an activist and a spokesperson for Dharma, being a wealth creator, and many nuances of it. These are the big pillars, and then there are nuances of it. And being true to it. And as Krishna says, it is better to die upholding one's Swadharma than to copy another's and try to live an inauthentic life. And yet, there is this invitation to move towards the Swadharma of knowing the self.
That's the highest dharma.
The highest dharma, and even a parallel dharma, along with being, along with being a mom, right, in my case, or being the founder of an organization which has its own millions of things involved in it. And the activism that I hold for Ayurveda or yoga, etc. We can also continue to pursue a deeper light. And that may be a helpful place for us to land, to be in both these, would you agree, to be in both these planes of consciousness, the everyday and to live it fully. And then for the personal is where
and especially, I think that's the central teaching. Yeah. If you had to summarize all of the Vedas in one sentence, what you just said is exactly it. Yeah. And then it becomes a question of each of us figuring out or discerning or intuiting what right action is at any given moment, and to be faithful to our sadhana, to keep up the practices that keep us anchored in the spirit or the self while doing what we do in the world. And as you indicated, we all have multiple roles, so different dharmas for different situations. But the big dharma is, to uncover the obstacles and eliminate the obstacles to realization.
If self-discovery is not our goal, if self-alignment, and I'm talking about the bigger self, is not our goal, then we would not be even closing our eyes for a few moments to question ourselves, what am I really feeling here? I know I feel this on the surface, but what am I deeply feeling about this? And am I this attached to it, or there is space between what I'm holding on to and who I am? And this kind of journey kind of begins when we start piercing this shadow that we are only, and I'm saying this with respect to everyone who has a calling, including mine. Like, am I only a podcaster? Is my podcast success or the success of Vedic or global, my organization, is that my passion? Or is that something that calls me and gives me joy and gives me challenges to grow? But then at the end of it, I fold back into my inner lotus and I become this person. And I just want to bring us, Phil, and I want to ask you this question, that this kind of knowledge or even this conversation that you and I are having and weaving together is a kind of conversation that cultures had, ancient cultures, not just India. I have seen now across the world that whether in ancient wisdom traditions, there was always this concept of the transcendental and the transactional.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
but this conversation is somewhat being eroded. And India's tool, or in Indian culture, in the Vedic tradition, the tool to have this conversation, to walk on this journey, to find peers who were beautiful, accomplished people in the world. They were kings. They were, Arjuna was a king, Krishna was a statesman and a king, and all these people, and yet they had these Bhagavad Gita conversations of the higher self. This would happen under the purview of yoga. But yoga and the different conversation streams were divided up into, hey, how can we have awakened action in life? Well, that's karma yoga. How can we embody devotion which brings up unconditional love within us? Okay, oh, that's bhakti. Or how can we know truly who we are and not feel separate from the universe and the universal consciousness? Oh, that's jnana. But all that is slowly being scattered away, is my observation. And that is why the theme of the second season, Phil, is Yoga Burns Again, because I see yoga not just as something that brings about a serotonin boost or, a temporary calm or a method to sell leggings or smoothies, but really it's a flame that burns within us and illumines first because any flame first brings light. So it shows us in its light where we've settled for crumbs, and then it burns through our ignorance where we are holding, grasping, clinging. And I wanted to have these kind of conversations, and that is why where I'm choosing carefully. I love the people I talk to and I meet in the world, but I really am bringing in people who may have a perspective to offer on this, not to demonize yoga asanas, or because it has only brought well-being and health and tremendous positivity in the world. That's what I would say. But how can we potentially restore yoga's one more option of leading us to deeper self-awareness, deeper self-recognition? I'm not even saying the word self-realization right now, but all that is possible. The Gita promises everything from basic things like how to eat well, all the way to knowing the Atma and the Brahman self. It's the whole journey, the whole package. I would love for more of this to be out in the world. And I
I
know
think
your
it's
books help. So tell us more. What do you think?
well, I think these conversations are crucial. I've been saying for years that the incredible popularity of physical yoga, of asana practice, and the physicalization of yoga is a double-edged sword. It's great and wonderful, and people are healthier, and people are have a greater sense of well-being who take up hatha yoga and practice asana. I do myself. The flip side of that, the other side, is the human tendency to dilute things and trivialize things, and you could say corrupt things. We've done it with so many things, and part of it is the commercial imperative. Oh, there's a market for this, but not for that, so that becomes the defining characteristic and what people market. But it's not just that. It's that individuals are at different stages of growth and development, and at a certain point in people's lives, just being healthier and looking better and feeling more fit and more energy is the paramount thing in their lives. And only by pursuing that and realizing I'm still not happy as I could be, do you then move on? Or maybe you're one of the fortunate people carrying their yoga mat to a yoga studio a few times a week, who's in a class where the teacher lets you know there's more to this. I'm teaching you asanas, and we're talking. This is a class on physical fitness or health and well-being. But pay attention. There's more to yoga than you may be experiencing here. There's more to it than what drew you here. And those people might get a glimpse of something more as they're lying at the end of a class in Shavasana, and they realize they have a sense of well-being and transcendence, perhaps, and expansion, and they may say, what is that? I want more of that. And so, yes, the current emphasis on physical practice is a trivialization and a dilution of and a limited perspective on what yoga really is in its fullness. But it's a doorway in for many people.
It's a doorway, yes.
It's a portal. It's for many people, for many people. I know longtime yoga teachers who teach yoga in its fullness and are expert in yoga philosophy and the spiritual practices of yoga, meditation, of dhyan and dharana and so forth, who started out because they had back pain or something, and someone said, "Oh, you should learn how to do yoga," and their eyes were opened by just going to study with a yoga teacher, and then they were curious and they read books, and they went to India and they had gurus and they studied and they became leading lights of yoga. So it can, any place you start can take you in the right direction. But it's also a question of people like you and me and all the thousands of yoga teachers out there taking the responsibility seriously to represent all that yoga is and the fullness of yoga. I remember being at a conference about this, or a yoga conference where this was a serious discussion, probably 15 years ago, right after American Veda came out. So I was on a panel, and everybody was debating, what do we do about this? So it's an ongoing conversation. And I remember advocating, no one took me seriously, unfortunately, that yoga teachers who are trained only to teach asana shouldn't be called yoga teachers. They should be called asana teachers. And only people who are well versed in leading people to all that yoga is and can be, they're yoga teachers. There are yogacharyas.
Phil, I was at a renowned outfit which offers yoga training. I'd like to refrain from mentioning the name of that outfit. And a 1 month training later, students were being graduated with the title Yogacharya. Now I'm an Acharya, and it took me 14 years minimum. I have 14 years documented of rigorous study and then some to achieve this title. So there is definitely something to look at as to how can we improve the teachers.
Yes.
And you also mentioned something about taking responsibility, and I have something to share with you. When I've been in this country for about 3 decades, and the first decade was more spent as a householder and as a outsider looking in, offering some classes here at a temple or at a private satsang or things like that. And the last 2 decades have been all about leading my nonprofit Vedika Global and offering the Vedic sciences of Ayurveda, spiritualized in the source texts like Charak Samhita, some yoga teachings, and mostly Vedanta, non-dual Advaita. But I have now been long enough in the country to notice the dilution, the dumbing down, and the genuine thirst in my international students' eye. No matter who you are, from which culture, what were your roots. A yogi could be, anyone, and they desire to know more. But what they get from the many shops of yoga in the world today, including in India, is a packaged, commercialized, simplified, and highly limited version, which itself is a blessing, but it is still very limited. So I started experiencing responsibility, and so I actually shut down a kind of an enterprise which was taking up a lot of energy of mine. And we were selling these short-term courses, this, that, albeit for the nonprofit and to do good. But I dedicated my complete decade now to talking about yoga, writing books on yoga, in my humble capacity, whatever I can offer. And to keep inviting guests like you on my podcast so that we can have this conversation. And if 10, 100,000 people listen to this conversation, we plant a seed.
Absolutely.
We plant a seed. That's what I want to be, a seed planter, because I know what that whole yoga does to the being. I've benefited from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was a very young, ignorant, incoming soul on earth, and I feel I've evolved with a full-on journey. I'm sure you have your own experience.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was lucky, like so many of my peers, that even before taking up asanas, I was on a spiritual quest I was passionate about. I had read books on Zen Buddhism first, and then all Vedanta. I read about Vedanta. I read the Gita. I read the Upanishads, and I learned to meditate. And I was going on retreats, and that's when I took up asana, because I was told it will deepen my meditation practice. And that had also helped me physically, and my health and my posture and my back pain and all the other things. Those were fringe benefits. I took it up for spiritual reasons, and I was lucky in that regard. Because asana, pranayama, all those things were part of a sadhana, part of a spiritual repertoire right from the beginning. Other people have to learn that that's what it is. And if they're lucky, they stumble upon a conversation like this, or the right yoga class, or a friend, and their eyes are opened and they say, oh, there's more to it than I thought. And if they're at a certain point in their lives where they can then say, I'm going to look into this, I'm going to pursue this, I want to find out more, it's the doors open to a whole new life. And for some other people, they may hear those messages and it can go in one ear and out the other. And maybe 10 years later or a lifetime later, they'll act on it. Or when their kids grow up, or
Because the seed is there.
the seed is there.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, it'll, sprout.
Connected to this conversation, and because you are such a advocate, promoter of, and also a scholar of the Bhagavad Gita, that in the West, and you also have some of the history of yoga in the United States, but in the West, the Yoga Sutra by Patanjali became the foundational text for yoga philosophy. Whereas in the Indian Gurukulams, it is a minor book. It is one of the source texts, but it is not the foundation for yoga teaching. It is the Bhagavad Gita. And I would like to restore a scholarly bent within world yoga community. Oh, yes, I want to know more beyond the asana, and I would like to resort to some understanding of yoga from the Bhagavad Gita. What does it have to say about the important pathways of yoga and the definitions of yoga? And for example, when we understand, that samatvam is a state of yoga, or kaushalam is a state of yoga, karmasu kaushalam yoga. When we go into these things, we understand so much more besides chitta vritti nirodha, which is it's a very advanced yogic teaching what Patanjali is offering. It was not for the 20-year-olds in Manhattan to be practicing, yoga. And Patanjali was talking to advanced upasana yoga Shishyas. It's an aspirational book. It's not the book to start with, and that itself created two things. It created a false drive towards being a certain kind of yogi without preparation, taking on celibacy, taking on extreme meditative sadhanas where you're not ready for it because you've not even done the basics of bhakti yoga, karma yoga, which even prepare the fertile ground for something like the Yoga Sutra teaching. So what do you say about that? Because you've been a consistent promoter of the Bhagavad Gita's message for yoga in general.
And
one of the rare people I know here in America to do that.
well, that's it. It reflects my own experience. I read the Gita before I even was on a spiritual path. I got turned on to the Gita when I was in school, and I was reading Henry David Thoreau's Walden. And he talks about the Gita in there. And I said, what is that? And so I wrote it down, Bhagavad Gita with two E's, Geeta is how they spelled it in Thoreau's day. And I went out to find a copy, and it was not easy to find one in those days, but I eventually did.
I wonder whose translation you read.
It was the Swami Prabhavananda and Christopher Isherwood.
Yes.
Because Isherwood was such a famous novelist, the book sold well, so it might show up in a bookstore in New York City where I lived. And it didn't have a big impact on me initially. It opened my eyes in many ways. It made me want to know more. But it was later, after I really committed to a spiritual path and I was hungry for more information, that I went back to it and started to see, all the the treasures that are in there. The thing and I didn't even know about the Yoga Sutras for years after that. I read some of the Upanishads and the Gita and different translations of the Gita and commentaries on Advaita Vedanta and everything. And then I heard there was something called the Yoga Sutras. And it's, as you said, different now in yoga studio world. And what's fascinating to me about that is here's all these people whose primary practice is asana, reading the Yoga Sutras, and there's nothing about asanas in the Yoga Sutra. The only reference to asana is for proper seating posture for meditation.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like there's a message in that somehow, that yoga is not just this physical practice. Nevertheless, I think it's terribly important, and it's it's only a few decades since the experience I just told you about when I discovered the Gita. And when I tell people that at that time I had trouble finding a copy in New York City, they can't believe it, because now you can click a mouse and get 20 different translations. And they're there. Translations make a difference, of course, but we have this world at our fingertips. And so, as far as I'm concerned, the Gita should be required reading in college courses. You shouldn't have to take a class on, an elective on, comparative Hinduism or something. It should be part of any philosophy or psychology class.
It's universal wisdom, all right. And
Yeah.
all the great minds have come to the Gita, whether it's quantum physicists, Nobel laureates.
I have a whole list of them.
Oh my goodness, yes. So that's another shadow that we are contending with, is that we have a beautiful scripture called the Yoga Sutra, but it's not the right one for beginners or even advanced people. It's a very specific kind of sadhana which needs a highly accomplished guru and a master, you can say, if you don't want to use that word, who then initiates us, not religiously, but into the science of meditation, into the science of mind management, thought management. But it just happened. That's a little bit of history thrown in there, because probably it was a slim book. And what do you think? Can you shed light? I'm always curious.
I don't know. Well, it's, the classic text on yoga in people's eyes. Even Swami Vivekananda did a translation and a commentary back in the day. And it's come to sort of be understood as the sort of central text of yoga.
Yeah.
And you're right, the Gita has much more in it, and how to apply it in real life. The Yoga Sutras are sort of summary, and I don't want to demean it. It's an essential text, but by itself, I've never found it to be enough, unless it's the foundation for a brilliant commentary. And there are some good commentaries.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
In my traditional training, it was Bhagavad Gita all the way, supplemented by Upanishadic perspectives, because Bhagavad Gita, people don't know this, but is also an Upanishad. And so we did some parallel study of, here is this thought found in Kena or, Kathopanishad. And then the Yoga Sutra was not the foundational philosophy, but the practice. The practice of going from sabija to niribija. The practice was introduced at a much later stage, when we were already in a state of samyama within. We were already practicing some samatvam within us. We were not being pulled by likes and dislikes and things. And then we were able to really meditate. And so we notice, like, people, I've met them who have a history of meditating for 30 years. But the moment they get up from their mat or their sofa where they've been meditating, life and this inner samsara builds up again, and they are maybe not as stressed as the ordinary person, but they are definitely back into the world, being quite caught up with it. But if one was to really walk towards the Patanjali path after doing the legwork with the Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, they would benefit so much more. So we've agreed on that, and I hope that our listeners, especially my students from the Vedic Study Circle, understand the value of the Gita. And so thank you for speaking from your
But I
heart.
want to add something, Shunya, because your training was in the context of a reputable lineage of that goes back a long way, and where the pedagogy was developed and taken seriously and
Structured, very
passed along.
structured. Yeah.
Yes, and passed along.
Mm-hmm.
That's you can use the Gita, you can use the Yoga Sutras or whatever. If it's in the if upaya is present, if there's skillful teaching
Yes.
along with it, then you'll get the most out of it.
Yes.
People can misuse the Gita too,
They do it
or
all the time.
trivialize the
Yeah.
Gita too. So it's the context in which it's presented, who's doing the presenting, how it's interpreted. These are subtle things that go into, that should be not taken lightly. And, there's too much of things
But it
taken
is taken
lightly.
lightly, Phil. I
Yeah.
might be an acharya and you might have spent 50 years doing this, but you got an Instagram account, you are the acharya today. That's the bottom line.
And that's, yeah, you're right. And there's with, I'm on the board of something called the Association for Spiritual Integrity. And one of the reasons it was begun was misbehavior and abuse by spiritual teachers. And that is much more likely to occur. And even if it's not abuse, but just erroneous teachings, it's much more likely to occur when there's no lineage to hold people accountable, when there's no structure, when people can just say, hey, I read a few books, I have a certain amount of charisma, and I'm going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Some of those people might do very well for their students, but others not so much. So we have to add the world of students and practitioners has to be discerning and vigilant as well.
And there is something inbuilt, Phil, I was going to say, in what we are studying. When we are immersing ourselves in the Gita, in the Upanishads, in the works by teachers like Shankaracharya, in my case, for example, or Charakacharya, such vinay, such humility rises within us, and such a thirst for moksha or the ultimate stage arises within us that we do not want to sabotage ourselves. It happens as part of the education. The ego becomes educated.
Mm-hmm.
But when we've, like you said, read a couple of books, got the jargon, have the lingo, and we go out in the world stage to be spiritual teachers, what do we have but the ego now embellished with spiritual words, robes, and and so be it, and we see this now. It has crossed. It's not just happening in the West, it's happening in India too.
Sure.
It's happening a lot, where Bollywood personalities or other influencers in the social spectrum are picking up a little bit of spiritual jargon and then becoming the authority on
For a while
what takes
anyway.
years and decades. Yeah.
But on the positive view of that is there are so many people wanting to explore spirituality
Much
that
more,
it
much more.
that it makes room for people to exploit them. If there wasn't a market, then people wouldn't be, being shown up.
But this is my segue into karmic relief right here.
Okay, there we go.
Wouldn't it be a karmic moment for someone to tune into our conversation and for others not?
Yeah,
You
sure.
know? Yeah.
Right. Hey, you out there,
Yeah.
you who are watching us now,
Yeah.
you have some very good karma, in our opinion, to have been led somehow to this conversation. And one hopes that you take away from it something really valuable and potentially transformative for your own life. But karma is a very complicated thing. And you're right. Some people have the karma to find the right teacher at the right time,
The right
to
book, the right teacher,
the
the
right
right
book.
podcast.
I have met people. I met somebody on a plane. She was happening to sit next to me, and she opened an autobiography of a yogi. So I knew she was. So we had a conversation,
Yeah.
and I said, well, to keep it short, she was browsing in a used bookstore, and a book fell off the shelf, and
Oh,
it changed her life.
changed her life.
Yeah, it was not the autobiography of Yogi. It was a
This
prior
is how
book.
karma finds you. They say that in India, they say that if there is a mela, like a collection of lots of cows and their calves, and a calf has to find its mother, surely and steadily that calf will find its mother. In
That's
the
right.
same way, surely but steadily, the calf of karma will find you. That's
Yeah.
just it, no matter what. And that was her good karma with the book falling off the shelf and knocking on
Yes.
her head.
And these are inexplicable things.
Yeah.
And other people, because of whatever karmic configuration, might find themselves enchanted by a teacher who turns out to be abusive or a fake, and they may have suffer pain because of that. There's so many people who are
Drink the
in that
Kool-Aid of
category.
false knowledge, avidya. That's it.
Yeah, and false attachments to a
Yeah.
personality who's on a pedestal and has charisma. And some of those people, it gets very interesting because I've interviewed so many people who were involved with gurus who turned out to be, misbehave in some ways, and they went through periods of disenchantment and disillusionment, the seekers. But many of them went through it and still came away with treasures from the same teacher, because the teacher who may have misbehaved and not been deserving of being put on a pedestal may still have been knowledgeable and may still have transmitted something of use and value to these people. It can get pretty complicated in that way. I've seen it
Yeah.
many, many times.
So, when you wrote Karmic Relief, Harnessing the Laws of Cause and Effect for a Joyful, Meaningful Life, what was the underlying motivation? What made Philip Goldberg say, I think I'm going to finally tackle this book that's been in the subconscious? And because you wrote in your intro how it's been there on the back burner. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
But this is my good karma was to have a wife and a literary agent who said, "When are you going to write that book about karma?" repeatedly. So I had that support. I remember, there's so many things about Vedic teachings that were transformative in my life sequentially. And I remember, at first learning about karma and thinking, is that true? Is karma, cause and effect? Everything that we do has an effect and it comes back to us. Is the world really that way? On the evidence of it, I see people doing bad things and nothing happening to them. I see good people suffering. So it doesn't seem to hold up. But that over time, as I evolved and my consciousness grew, it started to make sense to me. And I came to accept it as one of the laws of the universe, that the way things, the cause and effect nature of life in the created world, in the manifest world. And it influenced my life. The thinking about it, the consideration of it, the way of interpreting events through the lens of karma. And I thought, as a writer, I'm always thinking, I should write about that or whatever. And over time, I started to see the word being used more and more in the culture. It just, it was evidence to me when I wrote American Veda. I had a little passage about the signs that Indian spiritual teachings are entering the mainstream of American life. Mm-hmm. And one of the signs was the use of the word karma everywhere, in products, in commercials, in popular song lyrics, on television. Everywhere. And so I thought, that's really interesting. But then I noticed it was often misused. Sometimes it was used correctly. Other times it betrayed a misunderstanding of what karma is, or an oversimplification.
A buzzword, almost. Like a buzzword.
A buzzword. And it usually meant it was usually used, and if you look at the song lyrics, and some great artists have written songs and sung songs with the word karma in it. There's probably a dozen popular songs just called karma. And most of the time, and sometimes when you see it on television, it's like when something bad happens.
Yeah, bad luck.
It's their karma. It's their karma. They must have done something in the past that led to this bad stuff. Or it's like somebody in love songs, it's often, you cheated on me. Now you're going to get the karma. It's going to come back to you, you know. And that's the context in which it's used. And overlooked in that equation, of course, is all the good things are also karma. You don't write music, you don't write a song about somebody being nice to you and that being good karma. No, it's you need the drama of the bad things. So that's just one example of how it's often misunderstood. And
if we start counting, Phil, the amount of good karma we have, from a comfortable chair to the roof on our head to
right,
this is all karma giving us gifts constantly.
And we forget that when good things happen, when we're blessed with certain things, that too is karma. That's everything is karma. Everything is the result of past actions, and everything you do now will result in actions in the future, in consequences in the future. That's what karma is. But we don't. It takes some education to get these nuances and realizing how rich and rewarding framing things in the context of karma can be. So that's why I was motivated to write the book. And I looked around and I saw that there are books about karma, but they tend to be either academic treatises on the history of karma and nuances of karma, or it's from a particular point of view. A Tibetan Buddhist teacher writing about karma, or some guru writing about karma, and I wanted the broader picture, and so I took it on, and here it is.
Well, your book is definitely something anybody who has even a mild curiosity can benefit. And you've even gone in and explained the classical concept of types of karma as per the Vedic paradigm. And you have chapters like fair and balance, what karma is and what it's not, or how we can use this law, avert the danger that has not yet come.
Yeah.
But then
That's
there's a
from
very interesting
Patanjali.
chapter. Yeah, there you go. That's from there. Then you have this one, a chapter called Practice Makes Less Imperfect.
Yes,
Could
I
you
was.
pound on that?
We have this saying, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
And so I wanted a chapter that emphasized the foundation and the importance of sadhana, of having a repertoire of spiritual practices that take us deep for all the reasons that we're familiar with of the benefits of regular deep spiritual practice. From a karmic point of view, is essential, because if spiritual practices help to alleviate the effects of bad karma from the past. They strengthen us, so when things happen, we handle them better, and we maintain some of our clarity of thought and a presence to react to unexpected karma in the present. And it's a foundation for making it more likely you will perform right action, you'll do the right thing, and thereby create good karma for the future. So I saw a spiritual practice as an important ingredient, a foundational ingredient, if the goal is to alleviate the impact of bad karma from the past and move forward in a way that creates good karma in the future for you and your family and so forth. But I didn't want to use the title "Practice Makes Perfect" because that would be over-promising. And one of the things that I've observed after all my research and hanging around spiritual people is that there's sometimes the misguided assumption that spiritual development can lead to some kind of perfect human being. That's one of the reasons people put gurus on pedestals. They're thought to be perfect beings. There are no perfect beings. So I didn't want to use that phrase to give the people the impression that if they only just do their daily meditation and their asanas and everything, they'll have perfect karmic consequences. They'll be perfect people. They'll only do right action. There's an erroneous teaching that was, it's still present in spiritual circles, but it was especially prevalent in the past, where one can reach a state of perfection in human life where everything they do is right, good, at the highest value to the individual and the cosmos, because they're so aligned, so in tune with the divine will or the laws of nature, however they put it, the universal currents. And, you know, even highly evolved spiritual people, even great teachers, great masters, we all have karma. We all have a past. And I don't know that there's anything that can be called perfection. And so I didn't want to mislead people, so I made the title Practice Makes Us Less Imperfect.
And I think I thank you for that. One is thank you. I think that's a very subtle shaping of the collective mindset to not make promises that convert us, that make us have this rigid black and white thinking, and also make us obsessed about sadhana, or then forget the purpose of sadhana and instead use it almost like a shield against suffering. And it creates stuffy artificial spaces within us, thinking that sadhana is all about creating that perfect person. And then, but whereas the human journey is an endeavor, it's an exploration. And and in the Vedic paradigm, I have been explained many times that even the giver of the Gayatri mantra, Rishi Vishwamitra, until he went through so many stages of dealing with his own anger, his own lust, despite doing the most extreme tapasya or sadhana. And it took forever for him to finally drop into his own being. He had perfected the sadhana, but his ego was separate until he experienced love from a peer Rishi Vashishta. And it was in that moment of love that he became the Rishi. Before that, it was all preparation, and he would keep slipping from that space. And I love that story. It so humanizes the giver of the Gayatri mantra and all his pursuit. And to me, that's very much what I agree with you. That's what I teach my students also, that sadhana is a tool, and let's keep it as a tool. But there is this whole other dimension that is soft, and it need not be approached in a military manner of sadhana.
And part of that humanness is ethical and moral behavior.
Yes.
And, you know, that too is in the Gita and in the Yoga Sutras, right behavior. And this somewhere, this notion that just sadhana alone will lead automatically to right karmic action. Well, it might. It improves the odds. You're certainly more likely to behave in a ethical and compassionate manner if you have a certain amount of contentment and inner peace than if you're agitated and needy and overwhelmed with desires of different kinds. So it helps, and it's important. It's foundational. But knowing what right behavior is also important. Having a sense of what ethical behavior is, and every spiritual tradition has its codes of ethics and right behavior. And there's so much overlap that you start to realize there's almost kind of universal agreement on certain ways of behaving.
Well,
And karma is very complicated because karma has to do not only with how we act in the world, but why we're doing it and what our motives are and what our the what's the word I'm looking for? The underlying foundational drives that lead to our actions. You could do the right thing, but if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, karma gets a little complicated.
Phil, without dharma, without dharmic do's and don'ts, yama niyamas, ethics being part of our life, which all religious traditions and all yogic traditions or yogic texts from India teach us. In fact, they are the precursor, they are the beginning preparatory stage. All sadhana also becomes performative and mechanical.
It can be.
And growing up in India, where sadhana is a way of life, people have been performing sadhana from birth because some family guru gave them a certain japa. And so my guru Baba used to say that the difference between a fool and a fool who does sadhana, without knowledge, without gyan, is that the fool has it easier. The other one has to go chant 20,000 times and then be foolish. So foolishness,
Yeah.
the ignorance, the avidya of the thoughts can only go away by exposing ourselves to illumined thoughts, reading illumined books, listening to illumined conversations. Ultimately, knowledge is what we need to give a context to even our sadhana. Otherwise, it becomes mechanical and performative and a ritual unto itself. I've seen countless people quickly light the incense, quickly chant something on their family temple while they are scolding people in the house or being violent to the people of a lower caste or something's happening. And so I thank you for bringing presence to our sadhana and being almost okay with some imperfection here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And if we didn't notice imperfections in ourselves, we'd have less motive to improve ourselves. But I'm always amused, and because I went through it myself, when I see people shocked that after they take up a practice of one kind or another and their lives seem so much better, and then time goes by and something horrible happens to them, or something, they don't get what they want, or somebody disappoints them, and it's like, but I've been meditating for a year. And no, I joke sometimes when people bring things like this up, and I say, look, I've been at this more than 50 years. I've written all these books. I've done all this teaching. Just ask my wife if I'm perfect. We're always learning, we're always growing. And sometimes when we're hit by a wave of bad karma, that's often what it takes to snap us out of our slumber and start doing better in our behavior and looking, to modify our sadhana. Bad karma has its value. It has its uses. It could be a wake-up call.
Phil, in my book, Sovereign Self, and then in my life itself, I really believe that there is no negative emotion. Negative, positive at a transactional level, sure. But
Yeah.
at the ultimate level, pain is a very vital emotion.
Yeah.
And because I'm a divine feminine worshiper, I can say when I'm in pain, emotional pain, when things have been taken from me or I've been stabbed in the back, and all this happens on earth to the best of people. When I say best of people who are not looking for it, they're not stabbing others, but still they're getting stabbed. Again, we have, to go into the inquiry of destiny and karma. But when all this happens, there is pain. And when I'm in a state of pain, I know it because I'm observing and I'm like, oh, curious. Oh, cool. I'm in ultimate pain. Wow, this is pain. This feels wretched. But then I also know that this is the time when my ego is being forced to go through a chamber of vairagyam. Like I have to now drop. I have to now see through and drop what I was holding on to when I was unconsciously happy. So the conscious sorrow is much better than unconscious happiness
Oh,
and well-being.
that's a great way of
Yeah,
putting it.
yeah.
And it's also useful as a barometer of our own progress, because when stuff happens, I'm now able to say, well, I still have lessons to learn, but look, you got past it much easier than you used to. You didn't get overwhelmed as much as you would have 5 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly 30 years ago. The karma works its way through. You're still aware. You're aware of it going on in ways that you wouldn't have in the past. And maybe now it'll be enough of a impetus so it's less likely to happen again.
I know where we've come to, we've come to the hour point, but there is just this one topic I want to bring up. And I actually want to bring it up because it's my observation, but I want to run it by you and see what you have to say about it because I want to glean your insights on it. So, from my understanding of karma, there's the academic understanding from the Vedas, and then there's this really personal, raw, painful, as well as glad insights around karma, my own. So, I noticed that I have some positives in my life, which is absolutely the law of karma being a gift for me, such as my Guru Baba Yodhyanath, my husband who cooks for me. So many things work for me. My father, who's a scholar and who showed me how to be okay in who you are. But there are some negatives which in this lifetime I'm not able to navigate around. There are some things, it's like fixtures in the house, and it's not furniture you can change. It's like being nailed into the earth, and I have to find my way around it. And that was the bummer. That's where you plea bargain and you think, I'm going to do this sadhana, I will study up the Gita. And so I had this, be with me, this subconscious plea bargaining of, somehow I'll close my eyes and that stuck furniture in my life, whatever are those stuck conditions, are going to disappear. And then spiritual progress began when I started understanding, and so probably I am a case study of your Karmic Relief book, thinking maybe there is a reason all this stuff is nailed into the ground.
Yeah.
It was, I no longer bruise my knees as I walk. I don't hit them anymore. I've learned to navigate them, but I'm also grateful for them because they have been the biggest reasons for my growth.
Yeah.
In hindsight. And the human part of me has now been evolving because of that block stuff, not because
Right.
of the stuff that's flowing. That's already flowing. It's this. This was really a teacher for me.
And my guess is that 20 or 30 years ago, you would not have had that
Oh
perspective.
no. Oh no.
So the growth is there, and the
Yes.
development is there, and the greater consciousness is there. And that's so stuff can still happen because karma is still being worked out. But how we respond to it, how we frame it, how we understand it, how we move forward from it, those are those are things we need to work on. And those are the barometers of our own progress. And there's one more thing, because this is right out of the Gita. In the passages where Krishna's talking about karma, he says the course of karma or the course of action is unfathomable. And that has always meant a lot to me, and I write about it in the book, because we have a tendency to say, why is this happening to me? What did I do in the past? And we try to find some moment in the past or some behavior, something we did but we can't know. It's just too complicated. And so Krishna says, don't even think about it. Just be in the present with this experience, learn from it, ameliorate the karma if you can, behave in a way that creates better karma in the future. Trying to analyze what happened in the past or in a past life, even harder, it's not the best use of our minds, because we can't always know for sure. We can say this has happened repeatedly, so there's something to be learned from this.
This is a theme.
Yeah. But to go back and say, oh, and I hear this all the time. Oh, your house was broken into. You must have been a thief in a previous life. I'm sorry. It's, it's not that simple.
But Jesus Christ was stoned, and Krishna was attacked.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. They had their karmic too.
So
And they and us, we're all not just packages of our own individual
it's
karma.
not that simple. It's not
And
that
we
simple.
participate in family karma,
Yes.
community karma, national karma. It's complicated.
So it's best not to sit there and blame yourself just because something difficult is coming your way, because it's not like that.
Right.
It's
And certainly,
incomprehensible, and there might be a reason why it's occurring.
or many reasons,
Many reasons.
a set of reasons.
Yeah.
And much of our karma has to do with other human beings, and they have their karma. So it's the interactions give rise to it, events in the world. And if I could say one more thing, one of the other mistakes is to think of karma as a system of rewards and punishments. And that's a very Western thing. God is punishing us. God is, doing some kind of judicial process and giving out rewards and punishments. It's more of an educational system. Karma is here for us to learn. And if we learn the right lessons, we move on and create better karma in the future. It's more of an educational model than a judicial one.
I like that. That's really nice. Phil, I think my listeners would love to know when your book is coming out, and will it be available in Kindle and other
Yeah,
forms? Tell us more about the book.
it'll be out in October of 2025,
Okay.
and there'll be a paperback, hard copy. It'll be on Kindle. It'll be on audio. So
And
you
how
can
can our
enjoy
listeners
all
find you?
three. What?
And how can our listeners find you? And
Me, my
yes.
website is philipgoldberg.com. My Substack is called Practical Spirituality with Philip Goldberg. My podcast is called Spirit Matters. And I would invite you, it's on the mindbodyspirit.fm platform. And there's a lot of good interviews on there, including one with Acharya Shunya.
Thank you. Well, Phil, it's just wonderful talking to you. And I think our listeners, will walk away with so much solace, I feel, on this topic and the topic of the yogic journey in general, and understanding the law of karma as as a as an overall law of morality in the universe, as you've mentioned in the book too. I think that's part of the yogic journey.
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. Talking to
Thank you
you
for inviting me.
feels like being under one of those banyan trees in India. which I love.
Yes,
That's how I
yes,
feel when I chat with you.
it's an Upanishad.
An Upanishad.
It's a good, I always enjoy talking with you. It was a joy to finally meet you in person when you were in my neighborhood. And I hope that we'll have many more opportunities.
Well, thanks for that meeting. We have some B-roll that our, people who watch this video on YouTube will get to watch us talking and, posing
Good.
for some photos and things. So that was cool. And then they'll have this clearly enunciated conversation. Thank you so much, Phil, and
Thank
thank you,
you.
everyone. Thank you for all your encouragement to Shadow to Self Season 2 also. If you like it, please leave a comment, leave a little spark for others to catch the fire. And until next time, this is your host, Acharya Shunya.
If you loved this episode, there's a way to show your love. Just go to acharyashunya.com and make a donation to support the production of this podcast. You can also rate, review, and share this episode with others. Live on YouTube every month. Browse her online wisdom school for her latest course offerings. And thanks for listening.